Hi there, Jonny here. Welcome to Studio One 5.4. So here we are in Studio One 5.4, and we're going to take a look through some of the major features that are now available. And some of them are extremely cool, and some of them are just very, very practical and useful. So let's start with the super cool, and we'll go from there. So the first one we're going to take a look at is something that will help you get the best and a better performance out of Studio One and how it loads onto your CPU. And this has been entertainingly called plugin nap. So I'm going to show you that first of all. So I'm going to open up one of my songs. I'm going to open up this one, this reggae groove. I've already got the performance monitor open, as you can see. And if you don't know how to get to that, then it's just dead easy. You just go down to this meter here that says performance, and you click on this guy. And when you first click it, it will be small, like this. And you'll notice that this extra little checkbox option here called Enable Plugin Nap. I'll explain what is meant by plugin nap in just a second. So the next thing you'll need to do is check this box here for showing all the devices, and this will show you all the plugins that are in use, and that includes virtual instruments as well, but not in this case because everything here is an audio track. So there are no virtual instruments, but if you did have virtual instruments, they would be listed here as well. This is a small song, so not very many plugins. But as you can see, they're all registering 0 or 01 or 02. So there's kind of not very much going on. And the CPU load is very, very tiny. It's only like 5%. But what we're going to do is we're going to play the song. And you'll see how this load changes a little bit as the song gets going. So it's fluctuating just a tiny little bit. This song, there's not a lot going on, so you're not going to see particularly wild changes here. So let's enable this option, Enable Plugin Nap, and watch what this does. So what happens now is, as you can see, as all of these plugins are disengaging audio passing through them, this little crescent moon is appearing. And that means that these plugins are essentially deactivated. They are not operational, and therefore they have no load on your computer. And as you can see here, the CPU monitor here is now barely registering. So let's play the song again with this engaged and watch what happens to these crescent moons. As you can see, the crescent moons immediately disappeared, and the CPU monitor started to increase. And as you can see now, it's tailing away again, and we're starting to see the crescent moons appear, which is very, very cool. And eventually all of those will go to crescent moon. They'll eventually all go to sleep if you leave it inactive for long enough. And this is basically designed to reduce the load on your computer. So when a channel is not active, there's no audio being passed through it, what will happen is any plugins instantiated on that channel that support this particular new mode will go into this nap mode, and they won't be functional. And that means that they are only functional when they need to be, and they are not functional when they don't need to be. So if you've got a trumpet channel, for example, in an orchestral part, in an orchestral song that is only playing for one short part of it, but you've got some reverb and you've got a few other things on that particular trumpet part, when that trumpet part is not playing and there's no audio going through that channel, then it will be deactivated and all these plugins will go into this sleep mode. So that's how that works. It is extremely cool, and it balances everything out much better on your computer system. All right, so let's take a look at the next feature. All right, so whilst we have the mixer open, let's take a look at the next one. So if we take a look at the sends, you'll notice that there's a little downward facing arrow on these sends now. And this is a helpful little feature, especially if you have lots of sends set up on a particular song. This doesn't have many. But if we now click this little drop down, this little menu appears here that just says remove all. Now if we click that, any sends on this channel will be removed. So if you decide you don't want any sets of sends for any reason, you decide you just want to get rid of them, you can do that in one move. You can also click and drag and copy a sends chain pretty easily, but you've been able to do that for quite a while. But that little drop down is very, very handy if you just want to get rid of a bunch of sends, so that maybe you could reorientate or reroute your audio someplace else via the send section. So that's a handy, maybe a smaller little feature, but it's a handy little feature nonetheless. Alright, so next we're going to take a look at the new feature that has been added to the note view, the music editor view here. And that is the section here that says selected chord and input chord. Input chord has kind of been around for a little while, but this is kind of a little bit new. So if I just play a little bit of this soloed presence track here and take a look at what's going on down here. You might have noticed how it is switching between selected chord and a secondary state, which is current chord. And what that means is that when the track is playing, Studio One very cleverly detects what the chord is that's being played by these MIDI notes. And it makes a reasonably accurate guess at what it thinks the chord is. It's harder when the chord is broken up, but when they're playing together in a block, Studio One does a pretty good job at trying to discern the chord and therefore what the name of the chord should be, according to the key of the song. Now, as it happens here, I don't have a key set for this. So for the most part, it's going to spell things as sharps. For example, A sharp, D sharp, and that kind of thing, which is not necessarily the correct spelling of the chord. But if I was to change this to E flat or something like that, then it would spell them correctly from that enharmonic point of view. So there's a couple of ways in which this works. It plays the current chord, but it also displays the selected chord. So if I was to select this very first chord just by range selecting it like this, it now gives us this chord symbol here, F add 9 with A sharp in the bass. Not entirely accurate, and the reason why it's not entirely accurate is because there is another note down the bottom there. So from what I have selected, it's made a guess at what it should be. So if I select all the notes and go down to this lower note here, now it's going to say C minor 7 add 11 13 over D sharp, which is not incorrect. It's one way of describing this chord, but that's a lengthy way of describing it, to be honest. It's actually just basically an E flat major 7 chord with some additional colorizations added to it, but it makes a fairly good attempt. So this is a really cool little feature if you want to kind of see what the chords are and what they should be and what Studio One thinks they should be. Particularly if you are receiving this as a track from a secondary source. So it's not something that you have played, it's something that somebody has sent you and you need to work out what the chord changes are, then certainly this will help. But there is another way that is even more helpful. and I'm going to come on to that next. Alright, so Chord Track has been with us for quite a wee while. As we can see up here, we've got some chords input here. And I'm going to show you some cool new things that you can do with this that is going to help you with your songwriting and arranging, and then how that in turn will help you when it comes to recording other instruments, for example, an acoustic guitar or another rhythm guitar part, and being able to see the chord track from a distance. Like if you have another musician come in to play a rhythm guitar part and they need to sit kind of a little bit behind you and to the side, they're maybe not going to be able to see this incredibly easily. So we have made a way in which you are going to be able to see them in much bigger, bolder letters. And it's really cool. So we'll come on to that in just a moment, but let's show you this one first. So what we're going to do is I have this piano sound here. All set up in presence. And what I'm going to do is I am going to select all of these chords, just like that, and then I'm going to drag down. And what you will notice has happened is some MIDI notes have now been created that will play these chords. Now those sound pretty good, but they're a little bit high up, so that's okay. What we can do is we can range select them all. We can go to the inspector and we can transpose them down. So transpose them down an octave. And already that sounds like it has the formation, the very early germinal ideas of something perhaps inspiring. Okay, so we're going to get onto the large chord display. So how do we get this awesome display to appear? It's really easy and it's very, very cool. So we're going to go to View. And then we go down to this new option here, Chord Display. And now this huge thing appears. And as you can see, we have this option selected, the chord track, because that's what we're using right here. And what you see here is the current chord. And then this blue line is going to move across from filling it from left to right to emptying it. And this is kind of your countdown to the next chord, which is in blue here. So if I play the track, watch how this works. Okay, and the cool thing is that this is totally resizable. So I can make it any size I want. I can make it longer, I can make it shorter, but I can also expand it this way as well. So it's completely resizable. So, you know, if your guitar player needs to be sitting some distance away from you, you can make this as big as you need to for him or her, whomever it might be. And now they cannot possibly fail to get your chord changes wrong. So this is very, very cool, just for the chord track alone. But check this out. If I go to input chord, now it's gone blank. But because I have this track enabled for recording and monitoring, I can play something on the keyboard and it will immediately display my chords. And it's actually pretty good. at displaying jazzier chords more accurately. Watch this. That is F13, and that is correct. Now it says A sharp 13 there, but really, in the key of F, that would be B flat 13. But I've not set up the key here, so. So it's pretty good at displaying fairly accurately any chord that I play. So if I'm needing to guide a guitar player through a set of chord changes, and I really don't know what they are called, but I know how to play them on my keyboard, I can set this up to input chord, and my guitar player can read that and go, oh, that's an F major 7 chord. No problem. And already we are in a much better place for getting a correct performance without kind of needing to get into music theory for either of us. So that works really, really well. And then the other option here is editor. So this will show you the chords as they go by as well. But you don't get the nice display of the upcoming chord that you get with the Chord Track version. Very handy. And the cool thing is if you've got a loop on here, it will show you, with the loop mode engaged, it will show you the next chord at the start of your loop. Very, very handy indeed. So next we're going to take a look at something that you can now do with bus channels in particular, which is very useful. And let's say you want to select a bunch of these buses and you want to set them all in mono mode. Now what you had to do before was go and click each individual one. That would get a little bit frustrating, and then, you know, when you want to put them back out to stereo, you have to go and undo all of those individually. That's a lot of mouse clicks and takes up quite a bit of time. So what you can now do is you can select a channel, let's say this one here, and let's say we'll go down to the bass bus, and we'll hold shift and we'll select those. So all of those are now selected, and what I can do is I can just hit this channel mode button and boom, those are all now set to mono. And the other thing you'll notice is that all the pan sliders have disappeared from those affected channels. So all those channels that are now monoized do not have any pan sliders. And then I can change that. If I want to go back, I can just click on that like that. So I can flip these from mono to stereo without any trouble. You'll also notice that the little polarity buttons are also changing. Mono, stereo, mono, stereo. It's a very cool little feature, very handy for certain applications when you want to check a particular bus in mono. Let's say I just want to check how well my backing vocals are sounding in mono. I can just hit that. And if I have like multiple drum and drum parallel buses and that kind of stuff, then I can do that as well, and I can put all my drums and all my parallel drum buses into mono mode, and that way I can check my drums in mono. So helpful little feature. So what we're going to look at next is some improvements and updates for the plugin manager. And to get that, we go to View, then we come all the way down to Plugin Manager. And you'll notice that there are some additions here. There's also this warning that says, please remove your plugin settings and restart Studio One to update version information. This won't affect your favorites or visibility settings. If you see that pop up like I have seen here, this is nothing to be too terribly alarmed about. The advice here is remove your plugin settings, and you can hit this button to do that, and then restart Studio One. And what will happen is that when Studio One rescans your plugins, all the version information here, which is brand new by the way to Studio One, will be updated to present more accurate information from the plugins. So, for example, we've got Ableton Live, the rewire here, which is version 1, and it was last modified. What that means is last used 6 days ago. And then I've got a whole bunch of other plugins in this list here with version information, and it also tells me the last time they were used as well. Some of these I've not used for a couple of years, in fact, because I don't use all of my plugins all the time in every mix. So there you go. That shows you all my plugins that I have installed, the file type, the vendor, and the folder that they are in, and the version as well as when they were last modified. It is very, very cool, very handy, and I'm going to show you the other tab that's here now as well. So we've got plugins, we've also got statistics. So if I open the statistics tab here, it says when it was last used, and then the average load time, the average save time, and the average preset size. This is handy information if you're looking for a particular plugin that appears to be kind of, shall we say, loading up too much into Studio One. It's causing problems for you. Maybe you've isolated the issue to this one particular plugin, and you want to look at when it was last used. You want to look at load times, how long it takes for the status to be saved, and also the preset size. All of that information you've got here. But back over here, this tells you when these were last updated. So some of these have not been updated for a couple of years, like the CTC1 hasn't been updated for a while. That's mostly on me because I have not been updating my plugins. I tend to just kind of work with them as they are. But some of these can definitely be updated to their most current versions. I just haven't done that yet. But this is really, really handy information, can help you source a particular troublesome plugin. So this is an exciting addition to the plugin manager. You can also, I'm not going to do this, but you can also, if you find a plugin that's causing a problem and it hasn't gone into the block list, you can manually grab the plugin and drop it into the block list. Which is very, very handy to be able to do that. So these are all options that you can check out at your leisure. And so finally, we're going to take a look at a brand new feature for Studio One 5.4 that is maybe not quite as sexy as all the other ones, but it's certainly incredibly useful and phenomenally practical. And very important if you encounter crashing or any other issues with Studio One as you're using the new update. So let's say you have some issues going on and you need to contact PreSonus Support, and you need to be able to send them a bunch of information that they ask for, or you want to volunteer a bunch of information that that will help them to look into and examine your issue in a lot of depth, a lot of detail, and hopefully end up with a clear resolution. So we now have this way in which you can generate diagnostic reports that you can send to PreSonus Support. So how do we get that? You go to Help, Create Diagnostic Report, and then you get this bunch of tick boxes here. Information about crashes and unexpected behavior, operating system and hardware information. This can be very, very useful for support to be able to look at what's going on your actual computer. List of installed plugins and extensions, application log files, application settings. These are really useful to provide evidence that will help the guys at PreSonus Support to be able to dive in deep to what might be causing a problem that Studio One is maybe crashing and you don't know why it's crashing. All of this information can help us to figure out what it is. So information about crashes, so this would be crash reports and things like that. Operating system and hardware information would be your system file, that kind of thing. List of installed plugins and extensions, application log files, application settings. So these will help us to identify if maybe there is one of the settings in your settings files that has become corrupt that is at the root of the problem. So if I now click on OK, we get this. A diagnostic report zip file. I've already tested this feature a few times, so you can see that I have created this a number of times. And then what you would do is you would grab this zipped file and you would attach it to your support ticket when you make it from your my.presonus.com or sphere.presonus.com account, and you send that to PreSonus support, and we will be able to unzip that folder and we'll be able to look at all of the information and hopefully arrive at a solution or give you a series of instructions to help troubleshoot according to the information that's contained within this folder. So this is not necessarily a particularly sexy feature in the same way that the large chord display thing is. That's a very sexy feature. That's extremely cool and very musical and very exciting and lots of fun. This is not quite so fun, but it's really, really helpful for both you, the user, and also PreSonus support for being able to much more quickly identify issues and steer you, the customer, into a resolution. Or maybe even, the solution might present itself within these files, within these documents. And you can be very clearly directed to how to actually resolve the problem. So I hope that this has all been helpful for you, not just this particular thing here, but all of these new features. I've hardly scratched the surface of any of them because I don't want this video to be an epic saga as long as all the series of Games of Thrones or something like that. So I hope you enjoyed this, hope you found it helpful. Please go and try these new features out for yourself and explore them thoroughly. And most of all, have fun making music in Studio One 5.4. Bye for now.